This is great for when I'm here playing my flutes in my little music corner of the house. But what do you do when you need to take some of these flutes out? Different reasons that you would be taking a flute out. To go play out in nature somewhere. To go play in a flute circle where you might need more than one flute. That's kind of hard to stick into a backpack. Performance, somewhere that you might be performing on stage somewhere. You might be performing for some other group. You might be giving a demonstration. I've given demonstrations at schools, for example, where I have to take a small variety of flutes to kind of tell a story of how the flute might have developed, things like that. So let's look at some of the ideas that I've come up with to be able to affordably take some of my flutes to some of the activities that I want them to accompany me with. Stay tuned. So the first way to take a flute out that is going to provide some protection for the flute, I found this, which is a document tube, document carrier. Found this at one of the thrift stores locally. Has just a little cap, kind of a very thin plastic tube. It was broken here a little bit, but it works just fine. Little plastic lid that fits on there. So what I do with this, I get a little flute sock that I made. Grab a flute, and this has kind of a moderate height block on here. And because this is not a real large tube, this will fit in here with no problem. But taller ones might give you a little bit of a struggle. Fit it in there. I've still got plenty of room. I could even put a small little pocket flute in there. And it has a little shoulder strap. Put it over your arm, that type of thing. You know, take it wherever you want to go on a hike, maybe, something like that. So we talked about the document carrier type deal. Pretty small diameter. That'll hold pretty much only one flute. I've seen, for example, the Oregon Flute Store has, I think, their Laughing Mallard, at least that's what the name used to be, flute cases that are made out of PVC tubes. Theirs are fancy, covered with nice, sometimes Pendleton blanket material, things like that. But it's basically a plastic tube that is lined. Instead of the lining, I went ahead and made this, and I used just the regular PVC caps, pipe caps. This is the thin PVC. It is, I think, maybe a 1/16 of an inch thick, something like that. You can find them in different thicknesses. This, I believe, is just a simple drain pipe that is not intended for anything super heavy-duty underground type deal. What I did, I took a piece of webbing, nylon webbing, I folded the end over, and put a few little stitches in there with my sewing machine. I got a tube. This one's a little heavier duty, but a PVC, a 4-inch PVC tube. And I put some of the PVC cement on the edge of the cap, a little bit around here, and I stuck one end into the end that was doubled and sewn. I stuck that into the tube itself, and then carefully put the cap on so that it trapped that tube, pushed down, and then the glue would set in just a couple minutes. That gives you the end trapped here. And then what I did on this particular unit was I pop riveted the strap to the tube, 2 little pop rivets. And what I've done in a more recent one, instead of having the pop rivets sticking out a little bit inside the tube, I made this one for one of my great big bass flutes. You can see it's pretty darn large. But this one adjusts a little bit up and down. It has just a strap that goes around the outside. You can cinch up, make it a little bit snugger. Bring this down a little bit, put it over your shoulder, you're ready to go. Same basic idea. And this will hold usually 3 flutes unless they have a really large fetish block. If one of them has a larger fetish block, you might have to put the mouthpiece end down first on one of them to get some of the bulk here instead of all of the bulk up around this end, for example. But this has 3 flutes in it right now with the other end cap on there. I can put this over my body like that. Go and do a demo, for example, at some schools. That's a lot of times I'll take 3 different flutes with me to be able to do demos for the children there and tell them a little bit of history about the flutes and share with them there. Next, a real easy way to be able to take your flute with you would be some sort of a backpack, something like that. In my travels around to the thrift stores, I found this one. It's a waist bag, very, very large. It'll carry a whole lot of things, but as you can see in the middle here, it has this little pouch that is sealed off on the end. It's padded against your back, and it's a great little place that I found to put a flute. I do usually put them in the little flute socks, things like that. That's the one I use when I'm walking around town most of the time because it doesn't bother my shoulders, things like that. Most people have a backpack type situation, and the way that I do my flutes, if I'm taking a backpack where I need more room to hold other items, this type of backpack has little cinch straps to keep things against your back and pockets for water bottles. So the pocket holds the foot end of the flute. This holds it, keeps it from flopping out. And you can just put the backpack on. You can grab your flute if you want to. Things like that. You have to be a little bit careful taking the backpack on or off, just so the flute doesn't go, flopping out. Another smaller type deal the large size of hydration packs. The hydration unit goes in this deal closest to your back with a tube coming out, usually attaching to the strap. But many of them have a separate bag there. This flute is a little bit long, but this particular bag has zippers on each side, so it could stick out a little bit. But if I was taking something like this on a hike, I would probably go with a shorter flute so that it would go basically all the way inside there. And this flute is an F sharp. So F sharp, some F sharps would fit. This one is has a fairly short section from the mouthpiece to the block. It's not as long as some, and there are no tuning holes or anything to lengthen the foot end. So the shorter the flute, I find, the better for some of my traveling, hiking, things like that. They just don't get in the way as much. Next, and I found another way to carry flutes from place to place, mainly from my vehicle to a venue where I might be selling some of the flutes that I make. That's when I use this technique the most. I found a couple of large wool blankets. I keep them folded in half like this, and I start positioning flutes inside. I position them about 8 inches apart. On the inside, and then I position flutes in between those like that, and then I carefully roll the flutes up get to the end, and then I use some leather bootlasing. I usually double it. Take it underneath. Do a quick knot, just kind of like you were doing your shoes, an overhand knot, maybe 3 wraps, and then just a quick overhand knot over that to do sort of a square knot. Same thing at the other end. And you've got a roll of flutes that aren't going to go anywhere. They're not going to bump into each other, that type of thing. Take them, store them in your car. Take them out. I can unroll this, set them up on flute racks, put them in my display area, and I even use the blankets on top of the tables after I get the flutes out of it as part of my display. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 flutes in just a blanket with a couple of ties on there. A friend of mine even uses old belts to cinch up the wraps, because he had gained this knowledge from me on how to transport flutes that he was selling, and he came up with the idea of using belts to wrap the bundle with. So another easy way that you can use virtually any blanket. I was able to find some blankets that I can use on my tabletops that sort of add to the atmosphere a little bit when I'm selling flutes. Simple, easy, no cost involved. You can use any blanket they have laying around the house, or the blankets that I found, I bought secondhand, and I found just great deals. One of them was at a Boy Scout event that I went to, and I think they had the blanket for $30, something like that, which was a screaming deal. And anyway, so that's another way that you can get your flutes from one place to another. So when you want to get a little bit more serious about taking a few more flutes, one of the nicest things that I found available is this from Visionhawk Music. They make at least 2 different styles, maybe more because they might have different lengths. I got the largest, tallest that they had. This one they claim holds up to 12 flutes. Wonderfully wide shoulder strap. You can put it, across your body. Hands-free, very comfortable to carry. Has a drawstring across the top. This the large model has pockets around the inside. And I will include a picture kind of showing down on here. But the problem that I've found with this bag, I've lost flutes in here. They eventually turn up, but let's see what I have here. Here's one. Two. 3. 4. And you'll notice that all of these are in separate bags because these are the ones that are inside that aren't in the pockets. 5. 6. 7, 8, 9. I think that's all the ones that are in bags. 9. You can see they take pretty big flutes. 10. 11. 12. And I didn't lose any. But when you go somewhere and try to find a flute, unless you take them all out and lay them out, it can be difficult to find the flute that you might be looking for. So the only thing that I have a little bit of a concern with that bag, it's not really a concern, it's just that's the one thing I don't like about it. Sometimes it's hard to find the flute, the one flute that you want to use. And that happened to me in a performance, unfortunately. Luckily, I had two of the same key, and I didn't get to use the one that I was hoping that I was going to be using. I used kind of my backup flute, which worked fine, but that was inconvenient, and I didn't want to, bring everything out of the bag. It just would have prolonged the thing, the break in between songs, and made my viewers less comfortable. They're there to listen to music, not for me to be looking through a bag. So the next one, I made this from a couple of blankets, wool blankets. I found this in a sale pile, and some nylon strapping. It will go across your body. I usually prefer just to do it hold it like this. And I'm usually taking this from my car into the venue that I might be playing at. I love to take this in when I'm going to a flute circle, for example. So this particular one, I am showing you my small version, and this will hold 18 flutes. Hold on just a minute, and we're going to open it up. So when you get to wherever you're going with this, a lot of people call these a flute roll-up, that type of thing. Undo, I have 2 clips on there. Unroll it. I have a flap that goes over the flutes, and then what I do after I lay it out, I bring the flutes out a little bit so I can see each individual flute. You can lay this out on a table. I've done that many times. And I've got flutes here, 18 different flutes, ranging from a low G sharp bass flute, almost every key, to F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A's, B flat, B, C, and a high D. So this gives me the ability to have my flutes out where I can grab one that I'm looking for really, really easily. So what I've done here, I've taken a used blanket, wool blanket, plus an emergency blanket, cut the emergency blanket after I decided what size I was going to make this. I had this width to work with, and I've seen some of these flute rolls in other places before, and so I knew about what size the pockets should be because I wanted each pocket with a divider in it can hold 2 flutes very safely this way. I wanted about this length to cover up most of your typical mid-range flute, or smaller. And then this section down here, a little bit longer pocket, would be for the larger flutes. So I would put those into the bottom section here, and then you can fold this over no matter what size the flutes are. So I had this length to work with. I cut this to fit that length, and then I determined how long I wanted this. I made this one about, I don't know, 6 inches longer, something like that. And I sewed this one at the edges first. So I sewed all 3 up the edges to kind of lock that into place. And then I just laid it out flat, and I sewed one pocket kind of on each side, approximately the distance or the size that I wanted them. And I kind of worked my way in, and that's why this one is the largest, because that's what I had left over. It works fine. Some of the pockets aren't all equidistant. This one is a little narrow right up at the top versus at the bottom. It doesn't matter. It works fine. And for me to be able to go somewhere where I need to get my flutes out quickly, this works so much better than the bag type situation. This, you can see everything that you need. If I know I want an A flute, you know, this is the A flute that I brought, so I know I can grab that. Or if I want a low A, I've got that right here. It puts them all in sight and in reach so that you can grab the flute that you need when you need it without having to fumble through a bunch of different flute bags or something like that. So I hope this was helpful. This is definitely my favorite way to carry flutes to a flute circle type situation, or if I'm going to be doing a performance, I can either lay it out on a table, which I've done many, many times. I can put it on the ground, and I usually put it in back of me if I'm performing on stage somewhere, so that I can just turn around, grab a flute, and then go back to the mic and play. So I hope this was helpful. I hope it gives you some ideas on very affordable ways that you can come up with to create a way for you to be able to take your flutes with you no matter where your flute journey would take you. So take care. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope this was helpful and that you learned something, or at least gave you some ideas. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the little bell over there so that you'll know when I post another video, whether it be some sort of a tutorial, it could be a flute review, it could be a music video, anything along that line. Almost always flute related. So take care. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a great day. We'll see you later.